download DB2 for 90 days. There are two things. This is for data warehouse product, and this is for OLTP environments. Continue.
What is that BLU means?
Oh, it's a new feature they have included in 10.5.
Oh.
10.5.
So the 9.7 and 10.5, it's after 9.7, 10.5 is the stable version.
Yeah, looks like, but most of us, yeah, looks like, yes. 9.7 and 10. Even 1 is good. 10.1 is even pretty good.
What is the major difference between 9.7 and 1? I mean 10.1.
I mean, these are
any idea of structural wise or any change? No?
Yeah, automatic storage is a major thing, Tony, between them.
Or you mean to the disk group or something?
Yeah, like ASM you have. From 10 onwards, they made automatic storage as a default option.
Oh. So is it a kind of separate layer putting in? You don't have to do anything, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they have included in it. So like ASM, you don't have to install here anything. It's included.
Well, ASM, they have the instance running, right?
Yeah, you don't need all that stuff here.
In some area, it's pretty simple installation and everything, but so once you confirm, it's going to show you a bunch of other different product, right?
Mm-hmm. So search for Linux. There should be something with 1.3 GB, 4 GB. Yeah, this is the one. AMD 64 and Intel EM64T, 64 boxes, 1.4 GB.
Is it? It didn't say any Red Hat, something like that.
No, it said Linux. Linux, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's enough. It could be any Linux.
Any Linux, you can use it.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Okay. So, any questions from you, Alkesh, Janet, Vishnu? Oh, by the way, Vishnu will be joining our sessions probably from, he is coming from yesterday, and he will, and he is basically.
Hi, Ravi.
Yes, Vishnu. Or is it Alkesh? Right?
Alkesh.
Yeah. Go ahead, Alkesh.
Yeah, yesterday's video actually didn't came. Actually, you sent it or not? I don't know.
Oh man, so that's my bad. So I converted that little late. This guy needs conversion, so I'll upload it today. It's there, right? It's ready. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. Blue is a feature which allows us to do analytics, or if you heard about in-memory databases, even the 12C that was talking about. So that kind of a feature is available in OLTP environments. So in-memory databases. So
what is that? It full of memory rather than disk? That's not possible.
That's what they are claiming it to be. Yeah, but I haven't explored it yet. Yeah, I haven't explored.
Oh, okay. So. Is it?
But that's definitely not a selling point for someone to shift to DB2 at this time. BLU. I don't know how many are getting benefited out of it.
What is the Oracle like support? They have a group here, IBM. Like Oracle has a Metalink or something, right?
This is called PMR, ibm.com/support.
PMR?
Yeah, PMR or SR. Support.
So you should be a member to pay to get the support, right? Any
No,
patch and stuff.
your client needs to be part of that. There is a customer ID for each and every customer.
Uh-huh.
So you need to be part of that.
And the patch install, everything should be come from there, right?
Yeah, they will send you that link, and there is a separate FTP website from where you can download. But ideally, you need a customer ID. Basically, your customer should register you, saying that this guy is the one who takes care of my things. So, all right, sir. Let's go ahead with the current class, and I'll address rest of the queries at the end. So, Alkesh, you are saying something video, right? I've just put it in the drive, and you'll see it in like 5 minutes. Shanet also asked me the same thing. Vishnu, okay. So if you look at what we have done so far, we have started with download, extract, install as a root, and it installed our product in opt IBM DB2 version 10.5. Then we logged in as an instance owner. Created instance using a command called db2 I create. This is db2 underscore install. Agree? Once we created an instance, we still create an instance as a root. Then we switch to su-2 instance owner. Then we switch to instance owner. After that we did db2 start. So this will allocate memory for at the instance level. Right? Now of course the equivalents for this db2 start are db2 stop. We also learned about db2 ilist. We also looked at db2 global regular global registry -dump command, right? And we also looked at db2 get dbm config. We also looked at db2 get dbm config show detail. So db2 attached to instance name to have that difference between current value and value in a memory. I'll walk you one more time to the directory hierarchy. Total, there are 3 different directories that are important to understand. The first one is where did we copied our product? Where did we copied our product? All right. Okay, it's taking some time to do it. Let me push in the meantime through presentation. This is what we looked at yesterday. We understood what is an instance. Instance is nothing but a combination of databases plus various ways we can set the configuration to decide how a specific database or a specific instance or a specific registry can behave. Root versus non-root installation. What are all the users and groups that are needed? So DB2 I create, I instance drop, instance list, start, stop, and in stop there are three ways. I'll show you today the usage of the others. And similarly DBM configuration to see what is the thing that is set at instance level. Now today what we are going to see is we are going to go to the next level where we are going to create a database. DB creation. Yesterday I created inst3, right? If I log in inside, the first thing I need to check to make sure whether instance is up and running is checking about this process ID. CCC is a major process 25441. It is started by another parent process called watchdog process, right? 25325. So 25441 is my process ID in which I have multiple child threads, right? That means DB2 is a single process, multiple thread based architecture, right? So when I say DB2 get DBM config, it shows me bunch of configuration parameters at an instance level. Right, yesterday we tried to update number of databases from 32 to 50, and after that we did the reset configuration. Agree? One such important configuration from memory point of view here is instance underscore memory. So this is set at only 20. This is set right now at only 20 into 4 KB, and this is set as automatic. That means if there is a need, it will increase automatically, and if there is no use, it will decrease automatically. 20 is very small, right? 20 of what? 20 of 4 KB pages. The default page size or a block size in DB2 is 4 KB. When I say 20 star 4, 80 KB, right? Only it's not even 1 MB, but it will increase. You'll see it increasing once we start creating a database. Okay. Now, the creation of database is very simple. Before that, let me quickly recap those 3 different directories that are important to understand. Mount DB2 is a location where we have copied the product. Opt IBM DB2 version 10.5 is a location where our product got installed. Once we started creating an instance by going into this location, where did our instance get created? By default, our instance gets created in our home directory. In our home directory, there is a file created with SQL LIB. This has all our instance related information. In this, there are 2 files we looked at already. One is DB2 profile, which is an environment for bash kind of shells. Similarly, if you are using a C shell, this is an environment file. And the one more thing we looked at is DB2 system. When we do DB2 get a DBM config, it goes and gets the data from this guy here. Right? There is a directory here called DB2 dump. In this, there is a file called db2 diag.log. This guy is like alert log in Oracle. This guy is like an alert log, or we call them in DB2 as a diagnostic log. Right? Now we'll go there. In the maintenance, I'll explain you more on this diagnostic log. But for our purpose, there is a command called db2 list DB Directory. When I talk about db2 list DB Directory, it will show me that list of databases available in the system. Here it's not showing me anything. It is showing me that some SQL and saying that the database directory cannot be found on the indicated file system. State is so and so. Right? That means there are no databases created. The simplest way to create a database is db2 create database, give a database name as testdb1. As simple as that. db2 create database testdb1. Okay, that's the simplest command we can do. So like I'll show it here. So it's the same thing here. db2, ideally we should keep these guys in a quotations, right? If you look at the commands of db2 are like English like commands. Excuse me. Yeah, the commands in db2 are like English like commands. So if someone wants to create a database, it's as simple as saying, buddy, go ahead and create a database called test. So db2 create database test. So ideally we have to put quotations on the left and right side of whichever is following db2. So db2 is a command which says that okay, execute this under db2 prompt. Like Oracle has a SQL plus, the db2's interactive mode is db2. Once I say this create database and database name, it is going to take couple of minutes. It is going to take couple of minutes at least. It will create a database and it will give this feedback. And once I am done with this database creation, I can simply say db2 in quotations list DB directory. It will show me the database directory. It will show me the database directory in the sense it will store the details of newly created database in one of the local file. And it has its own directory. In the directory, it has its own file to record all this information. So if you look at this, what information it has is number of entries is 1, and details about the database entry 1 is the database name is test. I have an option to specify alias for the database nickname. It is test. Now local database directory means where this database got created. See, database is nothing but a combination of storage and few files, right? If someone asks me an instance is a logical thing where I combine databases together. But what is a database? Database is mainly a storage, right? In the sense I need some space to store some data, basic database, and it's associated with XYZ things. Now where all those got stored is in this home db2 inst1. But we need to ask ourselves that why in this directory only? Why not in temp? Why not in some other directory? Okay, I'll come to that in next slide. The database release base level is 10. Do I have any comment? So directory entry type indirect means it's a local database. It's a local database. If you go back and refer the instance definition, it says that local database manager where we catalog databases. That means we can create local databases and we can also attach here the remote databases. So we'll see more on this in the concept of data federation. Data federation is a concept that talks about, that's equivalent to DB links in Oracle. Data federation means sitting in database, how can I communicate to other databases? So that concept we see here, remote, and the catalog partition number is 0, means it's on first partition. Do we have alternative server host name and port number? Again, we will see on this more about on this in HADR concept, where once this database is down, it will automatically redirect request to alternative host number and port number. So the database is created successfully here. The database is created successfully. Now if I do DB2 list DB directory, it will show me the same details. Okay, and by default it created the database in home DB2 inst3. What is this home DB2 inst3? My home directory, right? When I say echo $home, this is my home directory. Agree? But why it is creating in my home directory? Why not somewhere else? Because there is something called instance level configuration. There is something called default DB path. In an instance level, DBM says instance level. At instance level, we specify that by default create databases in this directory. If user does not pass any path to store the database and its related files, by default store this guy in this place, right? So you can update this so it will affect entire new databases that you are going to create without a path. But ideally we always pass path, saying that I want my database to be stored in so and so file systems. Okay, so any questions so far? Any questions so far on the creation of a database using a simple syntax?
So you have to put the path over there, set the path, or you can give the time of creation, you can give the path manually.
Yeah, I'll cover that, Tony. That's the objective of next slides. Okay. Now, moving on from here, before we understand the path, let's go and see, right, from where this information is coming. When I say DB2 list DB directory, from where this information is coming, I need to go to my home directory. For everything, home directory is a starting point. Okay. So along with SQL lib here in my home directory, now it created one more directory called DB2 inst3. Okay. So I'll take you to the DB2 inst3, my storage directory. Before that, in SQL LIB, right, it created one more directory called SQL DB dir. It just got created now. This SQL DB dir is a directory which has information about, again, like 3 more files inside it, which has information about, anyway I cannot read it, which has information about list of databases in my system. When I say DB2 list DB directory, get me the database information, it will go and read this file. Just for information purpose, to make sure like from where you are getting the data. Right? When I say get me the database information, it goes and gets the data from this location. SQL LIB SQL DB dir. There is one more file inside this directory called SQL DB dir. Okay. Now, like it goes and gets the data from DB2 system, right? For DBM configuration, right? Now going two directories above here and going back to SQL LIB. Now there is a parallel directory here created for storage of a database, right? If I go inside this, right, inside my home directory, this is a little tricky thing to understand. So this is the path where I created the storage information. Inside this directory, it creates a directory with the instance name. That's what it is, instance name. Inside this, you see one with the node name. That's where you see three different directories here. Three different directories, right? One is again SQL DB DAR. Like you have seen here, SQL DB DAR. This is a global database directory and this is a local database directory. I'll cover in a minute why you need this local DB DAR, right? So there is one created with SQL. This is your DB path. What do we mean by DB path is it holds the information about database configuration, such as how many transaction logs or redo logs I have, what is my database configuration, how my database is defined, all this information for database consistency, database level consistency. So these are the files that DB2 look for in case of a restore. Okay. Now what I have under testDB1, the database name is storage. Under testDB1 I have storage. Storage I mean here, we looked it in a day one, right? A database is a combination of table spaces. A database is a logical thing, which is again a combination of logical things called table spaces. So we have created a testDB database here. Agree? This testDB is a combination of multiple table spaces. Now where are those table spaces is? These are those table spaces, T0, T1 and T2. Okay. Now if I go to like T0, this is a directory. There is a file here. This file is nothing but my container. This file is nothing but container. If you look at the right side is a physical thing. This is my physical file, but these are all logical things. The table space is a logical thing or logical combination of containers. Now so far this is a combination of one container. Container might look like a fancy name. It is just a physical thing or a local file. It's like a .db of files on Oracle files. Okay. Similarly, if I go to table space 1, it again has, it's I think .tmp stands for it might be temporary table space. This is a catalog table space. We'll see more in later. So I've been just covering this. Again, this might be a large table space. So it's basically a combination of containers. Right now there is only one container for this table space. Okay. Now moving on. Three different directories. We looked at storage directory. The another directory here is SQL 001. If I go inside this directory, I told you that this directory has a files that are consistent, that are needed for database consistency. For example, by default it keeps transaction logs information in this directory when we can move them to different paths. This SQL DB config is a file that talks about database level configuration. When I say DB2 get DB config, like there is a command called dbm config, you also have a command called db2 get db config. This talks about database level configuration. DB2 get db config for, you have to say database name, testdb1. Then it will go and get the data from this guy here, SQL DB configuration. The moment I say that, it again shows me bunch of configuration information, right? So do we see all these options? I doubt in these sessions, but we look at majority of them. I mean, majority of them in the sense important of them. Each one has like 170, 180 configuration parameters. So we maybe hardly see 15 to 20. Grep database. So right now when the database got created, it allocated this much of memory. So this is the memory assigned for this database. Let's calculate how much is the size. These many of 4 KB pages. So that means close to 190 MB has been assigned for this test DB at this point. Close to 190 MB. So now let's go and check for instance level. You remember instance level only has 20, right? Now let's, oh, it's not it's instance.
Hey Ravi,
Yes.
quick question. Like you went in those table spaces and checked the memo, how much is the space it has it. What about using a disk uses and -h? It automatically converts to human readable instead of calculating. Is that right?
For DF and DU-H, yes, local file system size information. DF-H, yeah, okay.
So that will means it will give us in a readable format, right? Instead of calculating. That's my point.
No. The calculation that we are talking about here is how much main memory that it got it for instance. How much main memory that we got it for instance. This is what you are comparing?
Yeah, I think so.
No, this is the one you see under DF-KR-H is storage, local storage, like hard disk.
Okay.
So this is actually the memory.
Okay, I got it.
Because we have 3 major components, right?
Yeah.
Even if you want to play
Yes.
a movie, we need to bring that from hard disk to main memory so that CPU can work on it. So this is
Makes
that main
sense, yeah.
memory. Okay.
Got it.
But this should be updating. This should be updating because I already assigned it for database. So
Okay.
it cannot support it. I haven't noticed it so far. We'll keep moving. Then we come back to sometime later in like 5-10 minutes. At least at that time we might see this getting. Because see, it hardly has 20 into 4 KB. It cannot hold all the entire databases.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean database itself is 180. Okay.
Sound good.
I'll keep that in notice and I'll come back to that. Okay. Now moving on, this directory has recovery history file that is needed for restore purposes, log control files, buffer pools information, all this information it stores here for database recovery and in case of a crash restore. Okay. So in summary, with the database creation, you'll get storage directory, database ID. This is called, we call it as a database ID. Now this SQL DB DAR is a directory. We call them as a local database directory. Again, it has the same 3 files as you find it in global database directory. These are needed to do a configuration or to do a mapping between these two. Now, when I say this, DB2 get DB directory on, if I specify any path, local DBDR. For DB2 it's list, DBDR and so on. See, there are 2 important things here. When I say DB2 list DB directory, it says me that this is the database I have available. But from where it goes and gets the data is inside SQL LIB. There is something called SQL DB DAR. Inside this there is again one with a file name called SQL DB DAR. You see what I'm saying? Now this file is a file which has global database information. But I want to find out information of databases created only in this file system. Then I simply have to say DB2 list DB directory on specific path. So this will show me that there is one test DB1 directory, the associated database directory is SQL 001. Otherwise, just looking at it, so here we have only one. Okay. In the meantime, let me create another database called a database test DB2. Let it run. Now what it happens is even it will go ahead and create a database in the same path, under the same instance, under the same node, right? So now you see here one test DB. Now we started creating SQL 002 on test DB2. Now can you map 01? So if just by looking at it, can you tell me that which one is associated with one? You won't have another SQL DB DAR that is shared across all the database directories, but this SQL 001 and test DB1 are like a package, right? But you don't know, as you move forward or when you start taking a KT, you cannot mix them, which one relates to test DB, the associated database ID. That's when actually this local DB DAR helps me. This local DB DAR helps me to map the relation between storage and database ID. Storage and database ID. So here I am using the nice naming conventions that helps. But in an environment where I don't have nice naming convention, this is a place to look for. So this will quickly show me that on this file system or on this directory, how many, or on this DB path, how many databases I have on the respective database directory and the storage directory.
So in other words, the database is sitting on the storage, which is a physical file, that path. Is that correct?
Exactly. Database.
This is for local, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What you mentioned that global directory also? What is that, Ravi?
Okay.
Global.
See, this local.
Come back later, but just want to have a thought.
Yeah. Okay. So global directory is just a directory which holds the information about all the databases. It just holds the information about all the databases in the system. It's just an information file. That's when I say DB2 list DB directory, it gets me information from all the databases. It just pulls the information. That means whenever I create a database, start creating a database, it writes an entry in my home directory under SQL lib directory that there is something called SQL DB DAR. This directory, it stores the information about, okay, these are the databases I have in the system, both local as well as remote databases also. We haven't been there yet, but even remote databases also. But when I talk about local database directory, it holds information about only specific local databases created on a specific DB path. Specific DB path such as this guy. Now let's go ahead and do one more thing. Now let me update cd /temp make dir Ravi. Now under home, let me do it here only. Let me create a directory called Ravi. Now I'll create one more database under this. I'll update my default DBM config using df3 db path to this guy here. I no longer want my databases, default databases to be created under home DB2 INST3. I want them to be created under Ravi directly here. So that's why I'm updating default DB path to this guy. And this updation of this path take immediate effect. It will be reflected immediately. So from next moment onwards, if I start create database test DB3, any idea where it will go and create? It will go and create inside this directory called Ravi. Now to better see that, right? Now the moment I fire this command, it writes an entry in this directory. This directory writes an entry saying that there is one more local database getting created. But where the database exactly created? Under my home directory under Ravi. It creates an instance, node name. Again you have 3 different directories. SQL DB Dir, database ID, and the respective database storage. Now what do we do in next slides is we separate these two things into 2 separate file systems. That's one of the best standards we need to follow while storage, because these two are critical information. So we keep these under a separate file system and we keep this under a separate file system. Since we cannot have it like multiple file systems, at least we keep them under separate directories. Okay. Now that's why when you say here DB2 list DB directory, it goes and gets the information that there are 3 databases exist in my instance. One is testdb1, the storage is inside this directory. Testdb2, the storage is inside this directory. Testdb3, you can look for storage in this directory. When I say DB2 list DB directory on, it gets me this information saying that the SQL ID, the database ID for this guy is this one. This is the storage name. When I do it for DB2 INST3, it just tells me that this is how these two are related inside this directory. Any questions so far? Any questions so far?
So the SQL ID is the DBA file, right? SQL 002, whatever.
Yeah, it's a directory, first of all. That directory has the files which are needed for database consistency.
Oh, it's a directory, it's not a file.
It's a directory. All these are directories. Even testdb1 is a directory, but it has table space inside it. SQL 001 is a directory which is a database DB path. In short, we call it as a DB path. Database.
So that's where the DBA file sitting?
No.
Like Oracle? No.
They sit inside this testdb1.
Oh, testdb1. Okay. Right. So the SQL 001 is the DB path which is consistent of whatever, database know that SQL path is the one very to find out the different file existing different path. It is something like a SQL path generating 1, 2, 3, something like that.
No.
For each different path. No.
Okay. Each database has its own SQL directory. Now, what is this SQL directory holds with respect to Oracle? If I compare is P file, SP file, redo logs, all the configuration information it has here. So, like whenever you took a loss backup, if I want to run my house, I need few things at a high level, right? That high level information is written here. But actual storage is stored here. The DBF files, the containers, basically we call it in DB2. The containers are here. This is a storage directory. And actually,
what is that container actually? Yeah, go ahead.
Container is equivalent to a DBF in Oracle. Container is a physical file. The terminology that DB2 uses is container.
It could be a raw device too, no?
It can be, yes. It can be a raw device or it can be a cooked file. It can be a directory. You can give anything. I'll cover that
When
on
you
now.
say cooked file, yeah.
Okay, go
When
ahead.
you say cooked file, is this DB group?
No, it's just like a flat file on a disk. It's just
Oh,
a flat file on a disk. Any local
what is
file.
that DBF group? The DB group.
Where did you find that?
Well, in the high level, like Oracle, they have a the group, the VM where they put in the group disk, right? Something like that. Is it?
Nah.
Is that
See,
kind of no?
there are many. See, the only place where I see DB2 lagging from Oracle is monitoring point of view. Remaining all things, you see DB2 doing things very simply. Look at how simple the installation is. Look at how simple the database creation is. It's a best database you can see, but it is only lagging with respect to the documentation and with respect to the monitoring. So you don't have all that headache of DBFs creating at a high level. No, a simple, straightforward raw device or cooked file you can give it. So I mean, we don't have that concept in DB2 Tony. So.
That's good. That's good. How can okay? Then let's come back later. But just want to know what is the bottlenecks you face when you shut down and bring back the server later on. I mean,
Okay.
the like Oracle has a inconsistent in different level, right? Mount mode, this mode, that mode. Here, what is the thing you can expect? How will you resolve? Maybe you can come later, but just give a thought.
Yeah, if I have a time at the end, I'll cover this. Otherwise, I'll respond to all of you through email. But let me stick to this agenda, Tony. So, okay. Now coming back here, Tony, are we good so far? So if I do a quick summary that I did DB2 list DB directory, right? That is showing me that there are three different databases I have. Three different databases I created so far. Now when I say DB2 list DB, look at this directory. That means go and get me some information. So this is displaying me the information. From where it is getting this information is, I might be repeating it here, but this is important. In your home directory, there is a file called SQL LIB. SQL LIB. This has a directory called SQL DB DIR. This holds the information about local databases as well as remote databases. Right? The remote database concept we haven't seen, but whenever someone adds a remote database here locally, that's also getting updated in this SQL DB DIR. That's why when you say DB2 list DB directory, it goes and gets information from this file. But sometimes I'm curious to find out how many databases exist in a specific directory. That's where you need to think local. You need to say DB2 list DB directory on specific DB path here. There are two databases exist on this local. These are local only. Okay. And how they are related? Whenever I create a database, I get three different directories, right? With the DB creation, I get three different directories. One is SQL DB DIR, local DB directory, and the another one is DB name. This is for storage. Whatever the database name, with that I create one more directory called storage. There is another directory called SQL XXX. So this is my database ID. This is what DB2 calls. What file have what information this DB ID has is configuration information. This information is very much needed for this database integrity to safeguard the interests of the entire database and data, right? This is very much needed. Okay. Now when I go ahead and create another database in the same directory or same DB path, it won't create SQL DB DIR again. it will share the SQL DB dir between two different databases. For example, another database to SQL XXXX, right? So in short, a database creation brings us three different directories. One is SQL DB dir and database ID, another one is storage. The best practice is in the industry is to separate these directories. We separate DB path, this DB dir and SQL DB dir into one directory, and generally we keep storage under different file systems altogether. Those file systems might have been mounted from EMC Tier 1 or NetApp storages, anything, right?
So which one is segregating, that is SQL DB are separate and other tools are separate?
Okay.
The standard procedure.
Yeah, this is the command that we need to run. This is the command that we need to run. If I have to segregate both of them, if you see my screen here, this is the command I need to do. Create database name on the storage directory. Here I have an option to give multiple storage directories as well. X comma Y comma G. I can give any number of storage directories I want. And I need to say database path on. This is where I need to create my database path. Now let me show you this example. Okay. Now for this, I'm going to the mount directory. Let me go to the storage. Let me make a dir for testdb4. So I cannot create. If I make dir testdb4, inside this testdb4, I will create two directories. One is make dir for testdb4 underscore db path. Another one is for storage. testdb4 underscore storage. Ideally, I'll keep these two under different file systems, right? But here I don't have that option, but I'm just putting under different directories. Now the simplest thing you need to do here is, when you do DB2 create database testdb4 on, you simply have to specify this path and the storage directory. If you have to keep DB path on your own directory, you just have to specify this path and the respective DB path you wanted. If you don't specify any of these paths, it will by default goes to your default DB path that is set at an instance level. Okay, let me come back to you, Tony, on this now. Is there any question from you on this?
So this is where the this is something like the control file sitting in database. At the time of start, the SQL file will be useful for the database recognition, something like that.
Yeah, that's the control files are in this your DB path. That's what I told you I mean by configuration files. What did I tell you here? There are three directories that you get with every database creation. What are those three directories? A local database directory, which maps my storage with DBID. This DBID has a configuration information. Integrity is nothing but your control file information if you want me to compare with Oracle. This has all the high level information that is needed for database successful run. I mean, I know it takes some time to switch the context from single instance single database to single instance multiple databases. So it's not an easy thing. But yeah, you can compare that control files are stored in this SQL directory.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Alkesh, how are we doing so far? You are able to get it?
Yeah, Ravi.
Okay. And how about you, Vishnu?
Yeah, I'm getting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it takes some time for you. Probably after the weekend
Yeah.
classes, you might come up to speed.
Yeah.
But make sure
Yeah.
you go through those Unix basics
Yes.
recordings without
Yeah.
fail.
Sure. Ravi. Yeah.
Shannon, how are you, sir? So is it okay so far?
Yep. So far it's good.
Okay. I mean, we are going very slow here because if you look at, see, the objective of this whole training sessions is to make you at L3 level. These are all L1, L2 tasks. These are all L1, L2 tasks. So these are your contribute to your 60 to 70% of job. Especially space management is like 20 to 25% of DBA life. See, you might see only like 41 slides in this, but it might take another day at least to cover all of them. Still, we are at only fourth slide because there is so much of space management we have to go through. I mean, it's worth going through like couple of sessions, especially on the space management, because this is where you see how even DB2 is different from other databases. Okay. Now, coming back here, I'm creating a database and keeping a storage on a separate directory and database path such as like control files or configuration files and redo information and all these information in separate path so that I don't want to mix both because this is heated heavily but this won't get heated very heavily. So I don't want this to corrupt this or I don't want this to corrupt this. So that's why I'll generally keep them under different file systems. Especially what I do is I'll keep this database configuration information under fastest storage possible so that the metadata of a database will come pretty faster. So if I go to other directory and if I do DB2 list DB directory, now I see 4 directories here. That means I have created 4th database as well, test DB4. Now where is it created? The DB path is under this directory. If I go there and do ls-l, there is one with instance name, one with a node name. And I see only 2 directories now. Why 2? Why not 3? Because the 3rd directory I have moved to some other path. 3rd directory I have moved to some other path. SQL 001 and SQL DB Directory. Now when I go inside SQL 001, it's the same configuration files. The same information but only thing is we segregated control information in one file and storage in another directory. If I go here, we again have same information. You see here test DB4, you see here 3 default table spaces. Same thing, we just put them in a 2 different directories for our operational purpose. Any questions on this?
For the backup, you need to take both of them. That's for sure.
Backup, you just initiate. Yeah, again, backup, you're talking about file system backups or a database backup. If you talk about a file
Yeah,
system,
the cold copy you need, right? File system backup, the cold copy backup,
okay.
right? The full
Yeah,
backup you need it, right?
yeah. Here is the thing. If you are taking about a file system backup, of course you are right. We need to take 2 different file systems. But if you are talking about a logical backup called database backup, you don't have to worry about it. It includes them in the backup. Again, you will be really surprised to see the way backup and restore is handled in DB2. How simpler. So we'll cover them at that time. But you are right. File system, you have to make sure both are managed. But database logical backup, like RMAN, you don't have to worry about it. It's including both. All right. What else I have next? Now, here is an important thing. When I say DB2 list DB directory, I'm seeing that there is a test4 database, right? And I am seeing that there is a DB path in this directory. If I go inside it, I can see two directories. But just by looking at it, how can I tell you where is my storage directory, right? So when I say DB2 list DB directory on specific path, it is only telling me that my storage directory name is testdb4, but it's nowhere showing me where is the path. Even it's the same case in this as well, previous databases as well. But the good thing there is both are in the same directory, so I don't have to worry about it. But here both are in a different directory, but I don't have an information of where this is stored, right? You see my point? Now how do I find out the location of this? Now how do I find out the location of this storage? That's when there is a concept called this automatic storage management came in picture. So this is of course managed by that. There is a command you need to do, db2pd -db testdb4 -storage groups. I'll cover db2pd command. It is one useful command, right? This is one useful command that will help me to get the information. PD generally is a problem deterministic command, but we for fun call it as a pocket dictionary. You know, right, how important is a pocket dictionary? If you are learning English, that important this command is in DB2. It gets you everything from shared memory. Now, this command has one option called -storage groups. Now it is saying that don't worry about these syntaxes. We have a separate class to talk on this. Now it's saying that testdb4 is not activated. Testdb4 is not activated. Okay. Now here is a thing. So this explains me one more important thing, that when I do db2 get dbm config grep for instance memory, it is still showing me 20. But whereas when I say db2 get db config for testdb1 grep database memory, it is somewhere like 1670 MB. But I cannot accommodate 170 MB inside this, like hardly 80 KB, right? That means there is something not right. What is that something not right is, we have just created the database, but we haven't activated this database. What do I mean by activation is a time where you actually allocate memory. This is just a standard that the default it's saying you that okay, give this guy 170 MB based upon CPU, based upon memory. I calculated something, and the configuration parameter for this testdb1 is only 170 MB. How 170 MB? 48432 multiplied by 4 KB by 1024 is 190 MB here. Okay, but I have only 20 into 4, 80. See, you cannot give it to database if you don't have an instance, right? If your salary is only like $2,000 or $3,000, I mean, you cannot buy a car with $5,000 that month, right? If there is no option of loan, you have to maintain within the budget. But my budget says 80 KB, but my database says 190 KB. How that is possible? It is just a definition. There is something here called activation of a database. Activate database testdb1. Now this is the place where it actually allocates memory structures for the database. Now let me see if I can, oh, it still has the same thing. Now if you look at this, when I activated the database, the memory assigned for this guy increased. But this is not right. I haven't noticed this before. But let me stop the instance and start it. Maybe let me do one thing. Let me say DB2 connect to test DB1. Here I'm making one connection. I'm making one connection to test DB1. Let me see if it exactly refreshes at least. No, it's not refreshing. Okay. Now let me show you, go to that DB2 stop. DB2 stop is not working. You see here? DB2 stop is not working, saying that the database manager was not stopped because databases are still active. That means there is an active connection to a database. If you want to find out more information about this guy, there is an error message here. Simply say DB2 question mark and this error code. I mean, it can be any code, information code. So it will tell you the information about this. Probably this is like O error utility in Oracle. On what scenario you might commit and what do you have to take it. Right? You are almost getting 99% of answers from this kind of information itself here. On what scenario you got that specific error. Now if you look at, there is an option called DB2 list applications. This will show you the list of connected applications. There is an active connection to a test database and number of threads assigned is 1, and this came from a local, and the integer ID for this is 180, and the application name is DB2 BP, stands for background process, and the user who connected is DB2 NST3. User is DB2 NST3, background process, application handle is 180, integer ID, and it says little more information that this is a local client to a database test DB1, and so far using only one agent, only one thread is working for this guy so far. Right now, so from where it came, because I connected here. Here I have an option to terminate this currently connected connection, or I have an option to kill this, or I have an option to stop forcefully. If I simply say DB2 stop force, it's a forceful stop. It's a forceful stop. Oh boy, I should have seen this. Okay, whatever we are seeing there, see, I forgot this. Whatever we are seeing here is value on a file system, right? This is coming from a file system. We should have seen value in memory. The value in memory might have reflecting something else. So what I'm saying? The value on memory might be reflecting something else. Now the moment I do stop and start, it will reflect the memory value on the local file system. Okay.
Can you do it without start and stop too?
No, you cannot. If you want that to be reflected in a local file system, or if you want that to reflect in memory, you have to bounce. Here we are bouncing instance. I mean, it's just not displaying on the screen, but it is actually happening in the backend. But we can see it with an option called with detail. DB2 get DBM config with detail. We can see it. Now if I do DB2 get DBM config, instance, will it get it? No, its instance is not up. It cannot get it. Now if I do DB2 start, it will reflect memory with this guy. I mean, that's what I'm suspecting. Otherwise, there is no reason to such a mature product. They might have missed the simple thing. Now you see this instance reflecting. Now this should be the combination of memory for all the databases. For test DB1, grep-a database. So this much is allocated for database 1, database 2, that much is allocated. So all these sum should be less than or equal to that instance. There is no 5, right? Yeah, there's no 5. I mean, maybe you can give it a try by creating a test DB5 and attaching to the instance and seeing the difference with show detail. For example, simply DB2 create database test DB5. Test DB5. So even then after this, I don't think it will update this instance memory. So you can see like DB2 attach to DB2 inst3, DB2 get dbm config show detail grep instance underscore memory. So this is where I suspect like the one value is for the current value, one value is in the memory. I believe this is where it's not reflecting properly. I mean, this is where it's updating in memory but not on a local file system.
So the automatic instance memory will be the constant or will be changing?
Value will change. The value in memory will keep on changing. And whenever it changes a value, it writes in your alert log.
In the instance level, I'm talking.
Yeah, it's at instance level only. Yeah. So whenever it changes any memory, it writes in this db2 diag.log that so and so has been increased. So this automatic is taken care automatically. But what do we do just to not to have any surprises is we fix this memory. We fix instance memory and database memory. But we leave rest of the things to automatic, so that I won't be having surprises in the last minute.
So it is always a good practice to put an instance memory manual, not automatic, and also database side also.
Yes. You know,
allocating.
If you don't want any surprises, yes, ideally. That's how most of the clients are doing. But I don't, because DB2 can do a better job than an individual, but at least I would recommend to fix this instance memory. So if I have like 200 gig, assign 100 gig to it, so that you don't have any problem. Like otherwise, if no clients are connected, this will reduce. If at least I have another instance also running on the system, you see what I'm saying? If there are multiple instances running on the same server, yeah, I definitely recommend to fix it.
Right. What is the surprise you get if you not fix automatic? Some kind of hangover, or it is what is the dialog log? Any error, major error?
No, it's not an error situation. Automatic. It's not an error situation, but the only scenario is I have 200 gig of memory. Okay, main memory on a system. I said for instance 1, I have 2 instances. Instance 2, right? It will start assigning the memory to these instances based upon the usage, based upon the number of applications connected. Right now on a 1 week, instance 1 is heavily used, so it assigned close to 100 GB, 110 GB maybe. So instance 2 on the same week is not heavily used, so it might have given only 20 GB. But from the next week, immediate follow week, what if instance 1 becomes not heavily used? Then instance 2 becomes heavily used. Then it has to take out memory from this guy and assign it here. You see the transition down there? That sometimes is painful. It's mature.
Right.
It's mature product, but the transition might not be in because it has to realize it. See, it has to collect all the data, saying that okay, instance 2, so many applications are coming up. Where can I get the memory? Where can I get the memory? Right? All the 130 GB I have used. So where else I can get it? By taking from the other instance. So it might be painful thing for this guy and it might be painful thing for this guy. That's why you don't want such sharing. You just simply say, let me fix it. Let me fix that this guy should be only 80 GB
In other words, you're giving the overhead to the database to handle this memory in a way that you have to steal from this and give to that guy, sometimes adjust accordingly. It's you have to collect so many data, metrics internally to figure it out, right?
That is true. So to take, for it to have that call, it might take like 15 minutes or half an hour and 1 hour or one day. So that time your clients are going to suffer, going to see like, oh, yeah, my system is not working. So you don't want those pain points. If you want, if you are sure that how much is system usage, fix it. But internally, you don't have to go to that micro level that, okay, how much is for buffer pool, how much is for shared pool, how much is for X and how much is for Y. You fix it at a high level saying this is your pocket money for this month. It's up to you how to use it. Right? That's how you fix it at high level. So, but
knowing that this is a very heavy application, fix it is the right thing to do.
Yeah, at instance level you fix it. Similarly, at database level also you fix it. So, yeah, database level also you fix it using database underscore memory.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So what is the other thing, Ravi, to fix any other parameter we need to worry about other than memory?
At this point, no, sir. At this point, it's even mature to handle this instance memory and database memory, but maybe my old habit that I never trusted that. So it's DB2 is matured enough. Like in Oracle, you say SGA target, right? So SGA sizes, you fix it. So similarly here also, I mean, it's matured enough to handle it. Yeah. But that's the only thing I see at this point.
Okay.
All right. Now moving on. So if I quickly do a recap of the topics we have covered, we looked at a simple concept called database creation. Very simple concept. With and without DB path and storage path. What happens when I simply give this statement? Where is this information stored globally? What are the 3 different directories that we get? Why it creates by default in my home directory? Can I update it? Right. So what do I have to do if I have to give a storage and a DB path? How can I see the mapping between this guy and this guy? So that's when we went back to this direction. So what I've been showing you here is DB2 list DB directory. I got 4 databases, in fact 5 databases, right? When I say DB2 list DB directory on the specific path, if I go inside the specific path, it has only 2 directories, database ID and local database directory information. But where is my storage? It says my storage is testdb4, but where is the directory? I don't know where is the directory, but how do I find that out? That's when you have to use db2pd -db -storage groups. So simply activate database testdb4. Activate in the sense you are assigning memory to this.
So is it something starting the database, right?
Yeah, it's like database start and stop. Yeah, you can think it up that way. Even though database is stopped, in your opinion, if an application is trying to connect it, it will start automatically. I don't have to do activate here. Even it's a deactivated, if an application is trying to connect it, it will try to activate it.
What point do you need to be deactivate? Maybe the maintenance time?
Yeah, memory allocations. Activate means you are allocating a memory, you are deallocating a memory with deactivation. Database level configuration parameters, if you want to change, you have to bounce the database. See, to bounce instance, it's a DB2 start and stop, right? To bounce database, it's activate and deactivate. No, okay, I'll go back then. So here is the thing. This will tell me that where is my storage directory. So when I say hyphen storage groups for this database, this is the location. This is my storage part. This is like ASM. What I do here is I specify this is a directory that's been associated with testdb4, right? This is how I find it out. If you want to find out for any database, you can find it out here. All you got to do is DB2 connect to testdb1.
How do I find out the database size, all the table space, data file sitting?
Okay.
Is there any way that you can show all the things?
Yeah, we'll go slowly there, Tony. We'll go slowly. Let me finish up in my agenda. So it's been there in the agenda. Probably maybe tomorrow you might see it, the table spaces and size.
Okay.
Okay. Now here I connected to testdb1 database. So here it said it's not active. So if I run it now, it should get me the data because my first connection makes the database active. My first connection makes the database active. So these storage groups is an important feature. Storage groups exist from a long time, but this is an important feature from version 10 onwards. This is like in other databases, there is automatic storage management. This guy takes care of automatic storage management. Right. Now coming back to answering my base question, that DB directory, right? I have 5 different databases. When I specify this DB2 list DB directory on specific path, so if I go inside this path, I can see here both database ID and storage. But if my storage is not here, you can simply find it out using db2 pd hyphen storage groups. Now what is this db2 pd is a very interesting command. It itself, trust me, there are 1,000 different ways to use that command. It is that popular. If we are maintaining a production system, this is one command we should learn. So that I have a separate and half an hour session to talk on that db2 pd. One such option is hyphen storage groups. Any questions on the topic we have covered so far? Okay. All right. The next topic we have is just understanding the directory structures. So this we have already covered, but it will be a quick recap. Linux Unix environment. So you have your home directory, right? You have your product installation directory. This is taken on version 9.7. Just replace it with 10.5. So these are the directories you have, right? This is where your product got installed. When you do db2 icreate, it will go ahead and create a directory called SQL lib, and all these libraries are indirectly linked to this installation path only, this SQL lib. In this, the important information is db2 profile, environment for Unix bash shell, system, instance level configuration file, db2 dbm config. SQL DB DAR is system database directory. That means catalogs or databases are kept here. Once you create a new database, it will create 3 different directories: SQL DB DAR, local database directory, database ID, and database storage. So these are the 3 default table spaces you get. And latest, we are also getting the 4th one. So table space 0 for system, 1 for temporary, 2 for user table space. Now this I'm sure we are already comfortable with it. Like I've been talking about like multiple times at least. So this is something even handy. This is something just reiterates what we have learned in previous slides. For example, DB2 objects location after default root installation, right? I've been only discussing here root installation. I recommend you to take it as an exercise for non-root installation. Okay, and see how that directory structures change once you are comfortable with this. So here is a DB2 object. Here is a scope of the object, the location. Before I get into here, I'm assuming that the user is DB2 NST1. The product installed has installed DIR in this directory. My instance home directory is home DB2 NST1. The DB path for test database is, this is the DB path. Now, you need to be comfortable with this environment. Once you get into a DB2 environment saying I have like 8 years or 10 years experience, if your counterpart or your leader saying that go to instance home directory, you should not ask him where is instance home directory. Instance home directory means home DB2 NST1. The instance information directory means SQL LIB in it. This gets created with DB2 I create. Now, DB2 DBM configuration file, instance configuration file is DB2 system. Your database directory such as buffer pool, storage paths, table space information, history and log control. This is all configurations. Control files is database directory is under DB path. When database comes in picture, you have to think of DB path. The DB path location is, this is where you created your database. Under this DB path, instance name, node name, and your database ID. Again, if you talk about a DB configuration file, you need to think of as DB path. Where can you find all the DB2 commands such as DB2 start, DB2 stop? Your installation directory. Where is your installation directory? opt IBM version 10.5. Inside it, there is a bin directory. Where can you find DB2 error message log? Please note that the scope of this error message log is instance. You don't have an individual error message logs at a database level. The scope is at an instance. That means the single file will do a tracking of all the databases. So under SQL LIB, DB2 dump. Directory for event monitoring, which is again, the event monitoring has to happen at a DB specific level, database level. It's under DB2 event directory. And this we haven't covered, event monitoring, the transaction logs, we haven't covered it yet. So the installation log, by default present in your installation dir, install logs. It will also keep one path in temp directory, but alternatively you have a log for longer run in this install directory as well. System database directory, this is one. Local database directory is at a DB level. Similarly, there is something called node directory. Node directory is when we configure remote servers as a local server here. So we see more on this in a data federation. So that's when it will create a file called SQL node dir. If I go here to my home directory and if I do SQL LIB, there is nothing called SQL node dir. There is no such file. But this file will get created whenever I do whenever I add a new directory, new node here, right? There is a way you can catalog it, but we have a separate exercise for it. So there is a partition database environment. This is mostly suitable for data warehousing environments where you partition your databases using DBF feature. That's when you need to configure this .cfg file.
Ravi, when you talk about partition database, can you create one partition database? This is in the, if not today, maybe next session.
First things first, DBF is not in the scope of this training, considering that's a data warehousing feature. And the second thing, I cannot do it here in the practical because I need to have two instances. It's not a challenge, we can create it, but making a communication of two instances using a protocol called RSH is something I haven't successful so far. So all I can do is talking on a theory and giving you some conversion document that converting it from non-partitioning to partitioning. I cannot be of much help on that. So.
Okay. It's something like a rack setup. They have two different multiple nodes
No,
talking to each other.
no. This is a beautiful feature, sir. You know, in one interview, people ask me that, what is that you like in DB2 that's not there in in Oracle? The first thing I say is database level partitioning. It's like we partition table, right? The advantage of table partitioning is, you know, I'll bring it here for the benefit of everyone. If my table size is 50 GB, okay, and let's say my table has information like this: customer table, or maybe orders table, okay, order fact table. In Oracle, you know, in a warehouse, fact tables are so used: order ID, order details, so and so columns, order date, right? So as you move on in your organization with your clients, you been accumulating data into this order facts table with respect to the order date, right? So you might have orders from 2000, right, and till 2000 today, and the total size accumulated is 50 GB, okay. But what we have realized later is most of our queries are using only data between 2010 to 2015. Even though you use only data of 2010 to 2015, still you have to scan entire table, or at least your indexes have to scan entire table. Even still you have to go to the data scanning of 2000 to 2010 unnecessarily. You see what I'm saying? So that's when there is a concept called partitioning came in picture. In that partitioning, all you have to do is identify a column or a multiple columns on which you can partition a table. So here I identify my partitioning column as date. Partitioning column as date. And I say that put all 2000 data in a container, one file, maybe temp. This is just a file name, 2000 data. So put all the 2000 to 2001 data in another container. Like this, I segregate the data. So similarly, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015. Most of the time in data warehouses, we keep the data for past 10 years or 15 years. Even though we keep the data such long, most of our active queries only come for the last 1 or 2 years. So when such queries are coming with a date restriction, I don't have to scan all these partitions. All I have to do at a high level is whether my date range is falling in this partition. No. Just a simple one scan instead of doing scan of all the data. In that scenario, the data might be very less. Even though instead of scanning 50 GB, I might have data of only 2 GB here. I might have data of only 2 GB here. You see the point I'm talking about? The concept of partitioning is to reduce amount of data you scan, right? This is at a table level.
That is the test, right?
Yeah, that's at a table level.
That is the
right. Now, if you do the similar thing at a database level, that's the database partitioning feature. At a database level, if your database is like 10 terabyte, you keep 1 terabyte one place and 1 terabyte another file system. So that, yeah, it's like mother of rack, you know, it's a mother of rack basically. So rack.
Hey Ravi,
Yes, Sharon.
quick question. If you partition on a date basis, then if somebody queries on a customer ID, then till it will be scanning all your tables, don't it?
Yes, that's a very good point, sir.
Suppose I says that.
Yes, that's a very good point, sir. Okay.
Unmuted.
Okay. Yes, Shannon, go ahead. You're asking something.
Yeah, I was. So it's if you means you determine that because of the people means they are not there is not active queries from 2000 to 2010, and there is more active queries for 2010 to 2015. So you partition at date on a date level, basically on a date column. But if somebody queries it on customer ID, so you actually determine from what the queries you get. So you basically do the homework before you even partition it. That's what you're saying it?
Exactly. So we don't take a call on which column to use for partition. Who lets us know is application developers. How they can let us know is they know the business saying that okay, these are the columns. These are the columns I need to partition. But let me give you one example of comparing this partitioning feature. This partitioning feature is like our electricity. If we use electricity in a right manner, it will light our house, right? Instead of that, if you go and put finger in that electricity, the switchboard, what happens? It give a shock. It's the same thing here. If you don't use partitioning feature in a right way, it is going to give benefit in one angle, but it's going to give or worse the things in another 99 directions. So it's a very, very crucial decision. We don't take a call. We just work with the people that there are a huge tables. Let me know which columns to partition. You see my point, Shannon?
Unmuted.
I think the echo is coming from your side, Sharon. So, any other questions anyone has?
So you basically you divide the table space, you divide all the when you talk about database partitioning, the database is partitioned across the server based on the data. Hello?
It is basically on the data. Data plays a crucial role because if I see a specific fact table in a data warehouse with a huge size like 400 million records or 500 million records, that's when I go behind my developer saying that you want the performance for this query, but it is scanning entire table. So tell me what do you want to do. But most importantly, sir, this may not table partitioning may not work in OLTP. I mean, it works, but may not in all scenarios. But in data warehouse, for sure, it works on a date. Because if you look at a data warehouses, Shannon, they are time-driven systems. That means each and every table for sure have a entry, date, time and date entry. So on every query of that what they use, they have a date restriction. If they don't use a date restriction, by default they put a date restriction of an year. So for sure the ideal criteria for to do that is date. It's up to them how do they handle the date. Sometimes they say year, then quarter, month, so then week, right, and date. So this is how they partition it. I mean, this is how they store the date basically. Which year, which quarter, they wanted to reduce to the finest granular level. But all the database tables, especially it's a recommendation for data warehouses. It's mandatory. It's not must, but it's kind of a mandatory. So if they don't put any date in the reporting while they generate a report, by default it defaults to a current year or like 2 years. So it's safe to partition OLAP environments, but on a OLTP environments we need to, yeah, you are right, we need to play a little careful. Is that what you're asking, Tony? Or did I miss something?
I missed you. What was the question?
No. I was just
Say it
explaining.
again.
I was just explaining that the major criteria for table partitioning is its size. packet size. Yeah, that's the point I'm reiterating.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So what we will see in the next classes is, yeah, I'll cover this in the next classes. So I think we had a pretty good discussion today. So I'll talk about how do you make a database active, what are those 4 different directories. So what happens when applications connect to a database, followed by table spaces, how the space is managed, command line processing, and catalog tables, buffer pool, storage loops. That's going to take another couple of hours at least.